Hi, this is Patrick Dean. Thank you very much for joining me. And I wanted to share with you there was a great swordsman a samurai swordsman named Musashi, and he was a master of the sword. And before every training session, as he trained a lot of his acolytes, that he said the following statement every single time: "The purpose of today's training is to defeat yesterday's understanding." And so tonight, in the very short time that we're going to be together, what I'd like to do is talk about some of the things that I'm doing in my life to defeat yesterday's understanding. And I hope in sharing this that there's some things that are useful for you in your life, because I want everybody to operate from success and fulfillment and create the life you were born to live. And that's part of my purpose. And so the second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to share about my journey a little bit. And I'm going to share some of the things that I'm working at mastering. Haven't mastered completely yet, but I'm working at. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a poll that I took with my men in my Warriors men's training. And the polls, what the question that I asked them was, if you could snap your fingers and change and let go of something in your personality or your life, what would that something be that you would let go of? So shortly, I'm gonna share with you the top three things that people said they would like to let go of to move forward in their life, in their let go of that's sort of ingrained in their personality. So I think you're going to be very interested in the top three of what people say they would like to let go of. Maybe you can relate to that yourself. So awesome for being here, and let's jump in. So I'm in a transition in my life from the active, more, better, different, building a company, traveling around the world, into more of an experience of online training, more of an experience of having less in my life as far as all the stuff around me, or building a company, and having more in my life regards relationship with my wife, Nancy, and focusing on the few things in my life that I want to continue or start to master. So it's the more, better, different, and all the game and all the stuff that's transitioning for me, because I'm getting older and I've had a lot of the more, better, different stuff. So what's the next step? Always wanting to live my purpose. What is the areas that I want to master? So there's five areas that I want to share with you that I am working at, sort of sometimes struggling with, actually. And here are the five areas that are part of my defeating yesterday's understanding. Number one, using worry and fear as a motivator. Gosh, for a lot of my life, there's the carrot and stick experience of life. So the carrot is the reward, the motivation of the reward, and the stick is the part where the fear of loss. And so operating from the fear of loss, or the fear of something not occurring, or the fear of something catching up with you, or the fear of not good enough, all of that is the stick part. And I have to admit, for a lot of my life, fear of loss and being and excelling because of that was a major motivator for me. Now, in my study and work with people, and also in psychological experiment, uh, it's here's what they found out about fear. They have found out that fear is a great short-term motivator, more powerful than purpose. But fear is not maintain. You can't maintain fear for a long period of time to motivate yourself. So it works in the short run, but it doesn't work in the long run. And when we operate from this fear of loss or fear of how we look or all that other stuff that's sort of ingrained in us as human beings, what happens is we get a great deal of stress going on, and that translates into anger, and that translates into that feeling of uncertainty in our life. And then we've got to get on to the next thing that we're afraid of, and all of that as a motivator. What I suggest and what I'm working with is starting to let go of that. Now, what do you replace it with? What I'm replacing it with is my purpose, operating from the joy and satisfaction that comes day by day by challenging myself and operating from purpose. So take a look in your life at what your purpose is, what you're here for, what really gives you joy, what is powerful for you, and look at each step toward that. So if you can have a day that you've made a step toward your purpose, in when you go to bed at night, you're going to feel some of that satisfaction. That's actually what we're looking for in the long run. What may be a destination, satisfaction or peace in our life or purpose, we can actually experience as we go along, as long as we're using more of our purpose as the motivator and less of the fear as the motivator. So I think that that's something that we can master. This is something that I'm going to try to master in my life, and so I wanted to share that one with you. So looking at my next step, my life in transition, what am I going to do? Downsize the place that I live, get rid of stuff, really focus on what's important to me, and spend time with people like you that are friends or people that are interested in transformation, and see how I can contribute and allow other people to contribute into my life. Operate from purpose. So the number one was changing from fear as a motivator into purpose as a motivator. Number two, I would like to start changing the fact that I've been operating in the past. And how I've been operating in the past is not so much holding on to incidences or events or that kind of stuff. I'm working through that. Now, some of you, you're still hanging on to things that have happened to you. How you aren't clear or complete on some of the things in your life, and that's true for all of us. It's a lifelong process. But what I'm talking about here is basically using the past as a comparison to where I am right now. And the fact of the matter, when I was playing more, better, different, making more money, driving 3 cars, traveling around the world, having several places to live, doing all of that stuff was fine in that moment. But if I compare what I want now and I look back on, wasn't that a happier time, or wasn't that where you had a bigger impact doing trainings with 500 people in them and speaking to 500 people? That's not the process for me right now. The process for me is to hang out with people like you, doing online, doing a few corporate trainings, do what I do, but spend less time out there traveling. So comparing myself in the past to the past has really, it doesn't really create very much joy. So take a look at if you're doing that, and perhaps take a look at just blessing the past and going, great, and I made the impact. But now what's the next impact? What has changed? Number 3, I have lived in my life in sort of a bubble of entitlement. In other words, I felt that because I have experience with 30,000 people, that I've done all these trainings, that I've made a difference in people's lives, that somehow I was entitled, that I didn't have to work hard, or I could kind of coast. And life is not that way. That's what I am learning. In other words, once you've used up the paradigm, Once you've used up that solution in life, then you got to take the next step in the experience of life. So my feeling that life is unfair, or life is unjust, or life is it shouldn't be that way for me. Once I started to take a look at that, um, that's a powerful space to come from. I'll describe that here. Here's what I mean. Uh, I will often, when I do a training, let's say we have 100 people in the room in a training, and I will ask people how many of you feel that you are extraordinary, that you are not ordinary. And almost everybody in the room raises their hand, and they're sort of excited about the fact that they are special, that they are unique, that they are not ordinary, and there's a lot of clapping and stuff. And then I kind of look out and I go, well, if there's 80 people or 100 people, 50 of you have to be below average, and 50% of you are above average. So seeing yourself as above average um, is, I guess, great for motivation in a certain way, certainly short term. But the idea that you are ordinary, you're just ordinary. You are. And ordinary in the sense that you have all the stuff that all of us human beings struggle with. That if you really settle into being ordinary, what that does is it frees you up to to create extraordinary results. Since you're just ordinary, you're like the rest of us. Now, the great thing about being ordinary is that you have all the emotion and feeling and everything inside of you that we all have, the doubt, the anger, all of that stuff. Just an ordinary human being getting on in this world. And when you can see all that, then you can make an impact. I think that being stuck in being above average, I see a lot of people that suffer from that. And they think that other people should be different, or they think that they're entitled to something. I think that that's universal. Honestly, I think it's universal. And if we can get by that and have some level of mastery. So I look in the morning and go, Patrick, you are ordinary, and that's okay. And, play the game from where you stand, and that frees us up a lot. I know it's kind of paradoxical, but I mean, and all the motivational stuff, everybody says, well, you're extraordinary, or you're in the eyes of God, you're special. And but that's a whole different I don't know, context. What we're talking about here is how freed up you are now that you realize you're just ordinary. So the next one that I'm mastering ordinary. The next one is my continual fight with change. I really, great man, Brian Klimmer, one of my good friends, and the guy that started K&A training, and I worked with for, I don't know, 14 years. Um, he wrote a book about his fight with God, and he called it "My Fight with God and I Lost." And so what I'm thinking about here is the fight against change. I think last week we talked about the change chart and how you can face change either through fear or you can face it through opportunity. And the idea that I need to look at the fact that I can't run as far, surf as much, do the things that I used to do, at least on a physical level, is part of the changes going about in my life. And for some of you don't relate to that, but part of the whole thing is the fact that things are going to change around you, and the resistance to change and wanting to have things remain the same is an energy burner. So next week, my mastery is not fighting change, is taking a deep breath and settling down into the experience of it. And it's a whole new thing for me. Last one, uh, my relationship to a higher power. I'm a scientist. My master's degree is in science. I have been a scientist my whole life, and it's in a studying human beings. And I noticed that my relationship with God is really based on talking to God when I'm in trouble, or petitioning God for something to happen, or to get something, or to receive something. And I want to change my relationship with a higher power into something much deeper, instead of petitioning for, or getting myself into trouble and going, oh my God, I need you now. Change that into something much more intimate and powerful and loving. And I think that that is a prayer for me around gratefulness for everything that's occurring. So changing the prayer from I need this to I want this, or this needs to change, changing that into a connection and gratefulness and a willing to trust. That is mastery for me. And some of you are way further along in your spiritual journey perhaps than I am, but that's my commitment there. And I'm kind of excited about that. That's going to be because I've got all the resistance going on all the time. All right. So those are the 5 things that I'm working with. I hope that they have value for you, and that maybe something in your life that you're going to bring more peace into your life as you start to master some of these ideas that have been with us for a long time and surrender to change. All right. So here we go. Great. I see that Ralph, Ralph Weir's on. That's awesome, Ralph. Thank you. Be grateful for where you're at. Yeah, that is a hard one in a world where more and better and different is the way that we measure progress so many times. But I've noticed that the most powerful leaders, are people that really create change, are people who can master more, better, different as a game, and not a way of life. And so I think the planet's going to be better off for it, and we're going to be better off for it by mastering more, better, different, and using it as a game to help each other. So, all right. So the results of the poll. All right. One of the things that's been one of the most powerful revelation to me, and is our men's groups. I felt that there needed to be a place where men could get together in absolute authenticity, nothing held back, just talking with each other about our fears, our dreams, what stands in the way, who we are, going through the practical of every day, and going deeply into the experience of what is our next step and what can we contribute. And I think that these men's groups that I've been running in the Zoom platform, which is the platform that most of you are familiar with, which is a video platform. These men's groups have been amazing. There's no openings for men right now in my men's groups because we're running them. But if any of you are interested in the next one I start, gentlemen, this is an amazing experience to be with people and to be with other men who are struggling with the same thing we're all struggling with. So all you got to do is text me at patrick@patrickdeancoaching.com and say you're interested, and we'll take a look and tell you about what that experience is like. So anyway, that's my marketing there. All right, so the men's groups. So the question was for our poll is if you could change 3 things about your personality, or let go of 3 things about your personality, what would those things be? So there was lots and lots of different answers, but I'm going to only, because we have such a short time, I'm going to go over 3 of them. So here we go. Number 1. The number 1 thing that people wanted to let go of is an experience called scarcity, operating from scarcity. And I can thank my good friend Mike Chioppi for this, as well as he described this really well, in the fact that it's human nature for us to think that there's a limited amount in the world. And if we don't get our share, somebody else is going to take it from us. That comes from hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. And now we are at a place in our life where I think we're evolving from uh, I'll get mine. We're evolving from I'll get mine, and then once I have mine, if I feel like it, I'll give you some, into a you and me world. It was a you or me world for a long time. That was a survival based experience, and now we're coming to a place um, where we can clearly see it's a you and me world. And if we don't operate from that, uh, it looks like there might be a real test about humanity being willing to stay around or going to be or passing the test of our willingness to steward everything around us. So the idea of scarcity is there isn't enough money to go around, there isn't enough relationship to go around, there isn't enough love to go around, there isn't enough success to go around. And that is a thinking that's quite common. But now, if you could let go of the idea and know that uh, there is everything you want to create out there, it might not look exactly like you want it to look, but the idea of peace in your life and love in your life, all of that is infinitely available. Would be a way to start. And what that does is it opens up something called possibility. Possibility is a way of thinking that something that we thought was not possible is actually can occur. So what I mean by that is start operating and getting away from that kind of that prison of scarcity that we have, that we've been brought along with, and take a look at the fact that it's wide open. Next, uh, people, a lot of the gentlemen talked about forgiveness. Um, Forgiveness, and I've written about this. Forgiveness is the idea that we will no longer hold another person um, responsible for the quality of our life. That forgiveness is the idea that in a deep and profound way, we see that the other person's actions or things that occurred were just driven by survival. And forgiveness is easy to talk about. And books have been written about it. And everybody kind of understands it, but at the deepest level, do we really own it? And what people that's what the men wanted to master, is the actual experience of taking those rocks out of the backpack and throwing them away and experience it at the greatest level. The idea of true forgiveness, no longer holding another person responsible for the quality of your life. And that means forgiveness of self and all the mistakes that we've made along the way. So many of us carry with us our own, we're harder on ourselves than any other person can ever be. So forgiveness is the idea that we no longer hold the fact that we made a mistake responsible for the quality of our next move. So that was number two. Number three is letting go of the idea, and this kind of goes along with forgiveness, the victim mindset. And the victim mindset is simply the mindset that um, things outside of us are the major influencers in our life. The victim mindset is the outside experience will really um, tell me how successful I am, or the outside experience will tell me whether I should be happy or not, or whether I should be fulfilled or not. So the idea of victim is blaming or living from a story that we created from the past and living in that story in limitation. And so this whole victim thing, all of us uh, fall victim to it. And so the idea of mastery is the idea of letting go of the experience that we are not in control of our life, and starting to control our life by how we think and the actions we take, and learning every day. I think the opposite of victim is being a beginner in life and seeing and waking up in the morning knowing that there's a lesson to learn, some person that we're going to meet that's going to make a huge difference in our life, people that we're going to meet that are our teachers. So getting out of the victim experience. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you tonight. And I hope that tomorrow you guys go out there, or tonight you go out there and you take a deep breath and settle into what's right in front of you. Look into the eyes of the people you love. Look into the eyes of the people out there and really ask yourself, how do I serve? What can I learn? Who can I be as that's different than who I have been before? And that's called working and being a beginner towards mastery. You all are awesome. Um, Again, for those of you interested in really discovering purpose and setting something in motion, that's what my coaching program is about. Um, Email me and ask me, and I'll have a conversation or send you some back about the coaching program and also the men's program, the two things we got going on. And I hope to see you online sometime again. And thanks very much for participating. We will have another Facebook Live coming up soon, and we'll go deeper into this stuff, and I will report back how I'm doing on my mastery of all the stuff I mentioned. Thanks. This is Patrick Dean, and I appreciate you and love you. Thanks.